On June 22, 1941, the largest land military operation in human history began. More than 3 million Axis soldiers advanced eastward, with thousands of armored vehicles and planes advancing simultaneously. The German side planned to defeat the Soviet Union before winter arrived. This action is called Barbarossa. In the early morning, the situation on the front line was rapid. The airport was bombed, communication lines were cut off, and many Soviet Air Force forces were destroyed on the ground with unexpected strikes. The German combat theory emphasizes speed and coordination, with rapid armored forces cooperating with air power, with the goal of encircling and breaking through, disintegrating defense lines, and dividing and annihilating enemy forces. The three main forces are advancing eastward, with the northern, central, and southern lines targeting key cities, cutting off supplies, and splitting the command system. At first, the results of the battle were significant. The Soviet troops were surrounded. The defense line lost coordination. The railway hub was lost, and the city was surrounded. In just a few days, a large number of troops were captured. The Battle of Kiev became an important victory for the German side on the southern front, trapping hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers and severely weakening the local defense forces. But this victory also consumed time and resources. A fierce tank battle occurred near Smolensk on the central line, and the fighting continued. The supply line extended too long, and the German side continued to advance towards Moscow. The Northern Front troops are approaching Leningrad, and the siege is prolonged, causing immense suffering for civilians. The front line is under comprehensive pressure. The Soviet command system is shocked. The top leader's response is slow, and orders are not conveyed smoothly. The war came too suddenly. However, the Soviet side quickly adjusted, appointed new commanders, mobilized reserve forces, and relocated industrial facilities to the east of the Ural Mountains, allowing production to continue and more soldiers to be deployed to the front line. Logistics issues begin to determine the outcome of the battle. The German supply line extends for hundreds of miles with fuel shortages and muddy roads in the autumn. The further they advance, the more difficult it is to maintain combat. The weather suddenly changed. Mud blocked the advance. Severe winter arrived early. Temperature dropped sharply. Equipment malfunctioned. Engines froze. Soldiers were frozen in the cold. Cold equipment was insufficient, and vehicles broke down in the low temperature. The Soviet troops, familiar with the climate, launched a counterattack. They were familiar with the terrain, determined to fight, and well equipped with reinforcements from Siberia, which were deployed to the exhausted German positions. Moscow became a symbolic target, and the German army approached the outskirts of the city, which seemed within reach at one point. The higher-ups fantasized about winning with one strike. But the frontline momentum declined. Supply shortages and severe cold weakened the offensive. The strategic decisions have a profound impact, with German leaders deploying troops southward. The operational plans are more influenced by political goals rather than military logic, weakening the central line forces and causing stagnation in progress. At the same time, the resistance forces in the rear increased. The railways were destroyed, supply trains were attacked, and local resistance increased the pressure on the occupying forces, making the rear no longer safe. The brutality of the battle was shocking, with some troops causing severe damage to civilians and cities. Large areas losing food and resources, and the Eastern Front becoming more comprehensive. Barbarossa failed to bring decisive victory. Moscow was not captured, and the Soviet Union did not collapse. The Red Army stabilized some of its defenses and prepared for a long-term counterattack. The numbers are heavy, with millions of soldiers injured or captured, civilians suffering huge losses, cities and villages destroyed, farmland abandoned, and the social cost incalculable. However, this battle changed the course of the war, plunging the German side into a war of attrition and forcing them to continue investing in the long Eastern Front. The migrated Soviet industrial system began to surpass German production capacity in key areas. The political impact was equally profound, as the Eastern Front consumed a large amount of resources, affecting subsequent strategies and providing opportunities for the Allies to change the European landscape. The change in leadership is crucial. The highest level of the Soviet side concentrates command, appoints generals who understand deep combat, reorganizes the logistics system. Factories continuously produce tanks, aircraft, and equipment. And the war gradually shifts towards the competition of production and endurance. By the winter of 1940-1942, the initial German offensive ended at a high cost, shattering hopes of a quick victory and being replaced by a prolonged conflict that would determine the fate of Europe. We cannot help but ask, if Moscow falls, if the Soviet median line collapses, will history be rewritten? This battle demonstrated excessive strategic expansion, inadequate logistics, political intervention in combat, and underestimation of the opponent's mistakes. At the same time, it also demonstrated the resilience of the Soviet Union, demonstrating industrial migration, strategic adaptation, and national mobilization under extreme conditions. This is also the story of countless people. Ordinary soldiers endure severe cold and intense battles. Civilians run around in search of survival. Families are engulfed by war, and countless graves are filled with sacrifices. This invasion marked the beginning of the deadliest battlefield of World War II, and there will be even larger battles, stories of tenacity and brutality in the future. But the Eastern Front War is far from over. In 1942, a new battle will be a turning point, and a city on the banks of the Volga River will determine the direction of the war. In the next article, we will walk into this city and witness how command and will shape a battle that concerns the fate of the nation. Please stay tuned.